Welcome to In Touch Crime Beat. I'm Officer Don with Fayette Commonwealth's Attorney Ray Larson.
Out of jail, okay? Don't mess up.
And those are the people, those repeat offenders, the ones that go to prison. And
I say we're the #1 rated radio show in the whole country. I'm Officer Don with Fayette Commonwealth's Attorney Ray Larson. Ray, we've been talking about the heroin problem that we have here in Kentucky and the issue that has popped up in Lexington here in the past few years. Just to recap, it wasn't too long ago we had 0 heroin deaths in Lexington.
Heroin-related overdose deaths, right?
And so we went from like 0 in what? Give me an example. 2000 and what?
Well, it was in 2009.
Heroin unheard of, basically. In
Well,
Lexington.
not for years and years.
And now, this year, we're up to what?
Well, 71% of the drug overdose deaths so far this year are heroin-related.
And the reason for this heroin issue, a part of the reason is they've done a decent job of shutting down the pill mills that we had, and some of the people that were hooked on pills got cut off, and now heroin has replaced that for a lot of these drug addicts, correct?
Well, don't forget, the things that people get addicted to, pain medication people get addicted to, typically are opiate-based. That's oxycodone, oxycontin, Lortab, those kind of drugs. And what's happened is our legislature finally got something right, and they kind of squeezed the pill pipeline. And as a result, people who are addicted to these opiate-based prescription pills had to find something else that was opiate-based, and what did they do? They turned to heroin. Now, heroin is not a prescription pill. Heroin is, in fact, an illicit illegal drug, meaning it's illegal and it's on the street, and people are buying heroin from these dope dealers on the street that seem to be coming down from Cincinnati and northern Kentucky, and they don't know what they're getting, and they don't know what they're putting in their body. Now, the wake-up call for me was last year when I was looking at some statistics that you think are awful, but we had 14 traditional homicides. That's where somebody shoots somebody or beats them to death or stabs them to death. That's 14 of those. We had 21 traffic fatalities. We had 63 drug overdose deaths. And that's been kind of under the radar in our community for years and years, these drug overdose deaths. Turns out that a significant percentage of them, a third of them, last year were heroin related. Now, this year, through the first 6 months of this year, we have had 40 drug overdose deaths. So and that's just half a year. And 71% of those are heroin related. So the numbers of drug overdose deaths are going up, and the percentage of those that are heroin related is skyrocketing as well.
Well, it shows that the legislation that stopped the pill mills is just really half of the solution. Because, yes, you do what you can to squeeze that pipeline. But the other issue that pops up here is leaving people who you catch with these type of narcotics out on the street and sending them to rehab really is not effective, because they're just going to switch to another drug. And if this was someone that I cared for that was addicted to heroin, I would much rather see that person in jail and get the opportunity for rehab as opposed to on the street. Because how many overdoses have we had on the street? 70-something? How many overdoses do we have in prison? You don't have as many. So my point is, if it's someone that I cared for, it sounds cold, I'd rather see them incarcerated in hopes they can dry out and have a chance at life, as opposed to just throwing them back on the street and putting them in some type of outpatient rehab program and hoping that it works for them. Because the truth of it is, rehab doesn't work for most of these people.
Well, they got to want it. But what you're saying is what most parents and relatives of drug addicts want, and that's put them in prison or put them in jail.
Yes.
For crying out loud. Let's try
They're
to...
safer in jail. And from a law enforcement standpoint, it's safer for everybody involved, and it's their only real opportunity. I've never understood this. You know, the people that do go to jail who are drug addicts, and they're in jail for a year. You know, they wind up being drug dealers and are addicts in jail for a year. They can't get to these drugs in the same way they can on the street. What's aggravating for me is when they actually dry out, when they do spend 16 months in jail or so, then they come back out and get back on the drugs. There's no excuse for that. I mean, I'm trying to understand addiction, but to me, if you've been away from it for 16 months, why would you go back to it? I don't get that.
I don't either.
You know, that doesn't make, that's someone who just doesn't want to change.
Let me tell you some statistics about it, because most people think these drug overdose deaths are a young person's issue, right? They
I would
do.
say so, yeah.
Yeah, the average age of these people that are so far this year is 37.
These are these people that have OD'd.
OD'd and died. The youngest was 20. The oldest was 64. And there were 12 that were in their 20s. There were 16 in their 30s, 3 in their 40s, 8 in their 50s, and 1 in the 60s. It's, when you break it down between men and women, 31 were males, 9 were women. You break it down by race, it's 38 of the 40 were white, and 2 were black. So it's basically a white guy's issue, this drug overdose stuff. But heroin and mixed with other things. You know, people drink and take heroin, which is basically the same thing. You know, that just
amplifies the effects and
well,
dangers.
as we like to say in my business, it exacerbates the problem. Now, you guys and gal are in country radio, that means increases.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So, at any rate,
Picking on me about
yeah, that's well.
my extensive vocabulary.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, well, at any rate, that's the drugs.
Tune in to the following stations to hear the full episode.